What if I told you that one business decision by a reality TV star just broke the internet and nobody can agree on whether she's a genius or completely out of touch? We're talking about Kim Kardashian, and the move she just made has sparked one of the most heated debates online in recent memory. Celebrities make bold moves all the time, but this one feels different. This one has people on both sides absolutely losing their minds, and by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why this is way bigger than just celebrity drama. Before we get into the specifics, I need you to understand something. Kim Kardashian is not just a celebrity anymore. She hasn't been for a long time. She is a brand, a business empire, and a cultural institution all wrapped into one. When she does something, it sends ripple effects through media, business, fashion, and pop culture simultaneously. So when people say the internet is debating her latest move, what they really mean is that this debate is happening across multiple worlds at once. The fashion world, the business world, the social justice world, the celebrity gossip world. All of them are weighing in, and the takes are wildly different depending on which corner of the internet you're sitting in. Let's start from the beginning so you have the full picture. Kim Kardashian has spent the better part of the last decade building what most people would call a legitimate business portfolio. SKIMS, her shapewear and clothing brand, crossed a valuation of over $4 billion. SKKY by Kim, her skincare line, generated serious revenue. She passed the California bar exam through an apprenticeship program rather than attending law school. She started a criminal justice reform initiative. She has been slowly but deliberately reshaping her public identity from reality TV star to serious entrepreneur and advocate, and that transformation has been mostly successful. People who once dismissed her started paying attention. Business publications started profiling her. She was being taken seriously in rooms that would have laughed at the idea of her being there a decade ago. So what did she do that broke the internet? Kim launched a private equity firm. Not just dabbled in investments, not just joined someone else's board. She launched her own private equity firm called SKKY Partners, and this firm has been making moves in the investment space that have people talking. The debate really exploded when details emerged about the types of companies and industries SKKY Partners has been targeting and the way the firm has positioned itself in the financial landscape. For a lot of people, this crossed a line from impressive entrepreneur territory into something they were deeply uncomfortable with. Now here is where it gets complicated and honestly really interesting, because the debate is not simple. It is not just haters versus fans. The criticism is coming from multiple directions for completely different reasons, and the support is also coming from multiple directions for completely different reasons. Let's talk about the criticism first, because that is what lit the internet on fire. The first wave of criticism came from what you might call the financial world purists. These are people who have spent years in investment banking, private equity, venture capital, and they have a very specific view of who belongs in their world. Their argument is essentially one of credibility. They question whether someone who built their profile through reality television and social media fame has the background, the expertise, or the genuine financial acumen to be running a serious private equity operation. They point to the fact that traditional private equity firms are built on decades of financial expertise, relationships, and a very specific kind of analytical rigor. The concern from this camp is that celebrity involvement in finance can distort markets, attract investment from people who are starstruck rather than financially sophisticated, and ultimately lead to outcomes that hurt ordinary investors. This is a legitimate concern that goes beyond Kim Kardashian specifically. We have seen what happens when celebrities use their platforms to promote financial products without fully understanding them. The crypto space in particular has been filled with celebrity promotions that led to massive losses for regular people who trusted a famous face rather than doing their due diligence. The FTX situation involved celebrity endorsements that cost people real money. So the wariness about celebrity finance is not coming from nowhere. But here is the counter-argument that Kim's supporters are making, and it is also pretty strong. Private equity is not purely about financial modeling. It is about relationships, access, and the ability to bring value to companies beyond just capital. And if there is one thing Kim Kardashian demonstrably has, it is an unparalleled ability to generate attention, build brands, and connect with consumers. SKIMS went from zero to a $4 billion valuation in a few years. That is not luck. That is understanding markets, understanding consumers, and executing with precision. The people defending her are saying that she is not trying to be a Goldman Sachs partner. She is building something different. And different is not automatically worse. Now the second wave of criticism is coming from a completely different direction, and this is where it gets really interesting from a social perspective. There is a growing conversation online about wealth concentration, about the ultra-wealthy accumulating more and more power, and about the ethics of private equity as an industry in general. Private equity has faced significant criticism over the years for things like leveraged buyouts that saddle companies with debt, layoffs that follow acquisitions, and the general prioritization of returns for investors over workers and communities. When Kim Kardashian steps into this space, she does not just inherit the debate about her personal qualifications, she also inherits the broader debate about what private equity does to society. Some critics online are saying that this move represents the ultimate transformation of Kim Kardashian from someone who at least appeared relatable in some ways into something they see as a symbol of the ownership class, the ultra-wealthy, who profit from systems that others find harmful. This is a more ideological criticism than the credibility one, and it speaks to a broader cultural moment where people are increasingly skeptical of billionaires and concentrated wealth. The third layer of criticism, and this one is particularly spicy, is coming from women in finance. And this is where the debate gets genuinely nuanced in a way that a lot of the hot take coverage has completely missed. There are women who have spent their careers fighting to be taken seriously in the historically male-dominated world of private equity and investment management. They have PhDs, they have MBAs from the world's most prestigious business schools, they have decades of experience, and they watch as a celebrity with a social media following gets immediate media coverage and cultural cachet in a space they have been struggling to break into for years. For some of these women, Kim's entry into the space feels less like a win for women in finance and more like a reminder of how fame and beauty and celebrity can open doors that expertise and qualifications alone cannot. This is a deeply uncomfortable tension because on one hand, the response of a woman succeeding in a historically male space should not be other women tearing her down. On the other hand, the concerns being raised are not really about tearing down another woman. They are about what it says about our society that celebrity can bypass the barriers that others spend years trying to overcome. And then there are Kim's supporters in this conversation who say, hold on, what exactly are we expecting her to do with her money and her platform? She built a multi-billion-dollar business. She passed the bar exam. She is using her access to enter another field. Is that not what successful people do? Is she supposed to apologize for being successful? The people defending her are pointing out that powerful men in finance have always used their relationships and their access and their celebrity to do deals, and nobody questions whether they belong in the room. There is something to that. Networking and relationship capital have always been currencies in the investment world. Old boys networks, golf club deals, college connections, these have shaped who gets access to financial power for generations. Kim is essentially leveraging her own version of relationship capital, except hers is rooted in cultural influence rather than elite institutional networks. Let's pause here for a second because I want to give you something that most coverage of this debate is completely skipping over. When we look at the actual mechanics of SKKY Partners as a firm, some interesting things emerge. The firm has been focused on consumer and media and technology companies. This is actually a pretty logical space for Kim to operate in because these are sectors where her expertise and network genuinely apply. If you are a consumer brand trying to scale, having Kim Kardashian's insight into consumer psychology and her ability to reach hundreds of millions of people through her platform is not nothing. It is actually a significant asset. This is different from Kim investing in, say, pharmaceutical companies or aerospace or industries where her background offers no obvious edge. The question of whether SK Partners will deliver strong returns for its investors is ultimately going to be answered by performance over time. And this is something that gets lost in the heated debate. Private equity funds are typically evaluated over 10-year horizons. The verdict on whether Kim's venture into this space was a stroke of genius or a cautionary tale is genuinely still out. But here is what we know right now. The fund has attracted serious institutional interest. The firm has been able to get meetings and make deals. Whether those deals will pay off remains to be seen. But the idea that SKKY Partners is some kind of joke that no serious players are engaging with does not appear to be accurate based on what has been reported. Now let me talk about something that I think is actually the most interesting angle of this whole debate, and it is the one that gets to something really fundamental about how we think about fame, credibility, and expertise in the modern world. We are living in a moment where the traditional pathways to credibility and authority are being disrupted. For most of modern history, you got credibility by going through established institutions. You wanted to be a doctor, you went to medical school. You wanted to be a lawyer, you went to law school. You wanted to work in finance, you got an MBA from Wharton or Harvard Business School. These credentials served as a kind of social proof that you had been vetted by people who knew the field. But we are watching those credential pathways being disrupted in real time by people who are building alternative forms of credibility through direct demonstration of results. Kim did not go to business school. She went through the school of building a massive brand in public view, succeeding, failing, and learning from both. Her credential is not a diploma. Her credential is the demonstrated ability to build things that the market values. This disruption of traditional credibility pathways makes a lot of people deeply uncomfortable, and that discomfort is completely understandable. Those traditional credential systems, for all their flaws, were designed to protect people from frauds and incompetence. If someone says they are a surgeon and they have no medical degree, that is dangerous. The vetting systems exist for a reason, but private equity is a different kind of field. The vetting system in private equity is ultimately the market itself. If your fund delivers returns, you are credible. If it does not, you are not. Kim is essentially submitting herself to that market verdict, which is more than a lot of credentialed people who fail upward through institutional connections ever have to do. This is a genuinely interesting philosophical debate about how expertise works in the modern economy, and Kim Kardashian has accidentally become the focal point for it. Now I want to shift and talk about the social media reaction specifically because that is where this debate is actually living. On X, formerly Twitter, the debate has been predictably chaotic. You have people from the financial Twitter community dunking on the move with a kind of gleeful snobbery. You have Kim's fans defending her aggressively. You have people making jokes. You have people writing serious threads about the implications. The engagement numbers on anything Kim Kardashian related are almost always astronomical, and this was no exception. On LinkedIn, interestingly, the debate has been more measured but also more revealing. Business professionals on that platform have been forced to engage with the underlying question of what qualifications look like in the modern economy, and you can see people genuinely wrestling with their assumptions. Some of the most honest posts on LinkedIn have been from finance professionals who admit that their initial reaction was dismissive but who found themselves unable to articulate exactly why Kim's track record in business should be considered irrelevant to her ability to operate in this space. On Instagram and TikTok, the conversation has been driven much more by Kim's existing fan base and by content creators who are using the debate as a jumping-off point to talk about broader issues around wealth, celebrity, and gender. The TikTok side of this conversation has been fascinating because the algorithm has been surfacing a really diverse range of takes, from people breaking down SKKY Partners in genuine detail to people making satirical content about the absurdity of billionaire culture to people genuinely defending Kim's hustle. What is really striking is how this single business decision has become a Rorschach test for where people stand on a whole range of issues. Your reaction to Kim Kardashian starting a private equity firm tells us a lot about how you feel about wealth concentration, about celebrity culture, about traditional credentials versus demonstrated results, about feminism, about the accessibility of financial markets. People are not really just debating Kim Kardashian. They are using Kim Kardashian to debate the things they already care about. And that is actually a really important observation about how online debates work. The celebrities and events that generate the most heat are almost never just about themselves. They become proxies for deeper cultural anxieties. Let me bring in one more layer here because I think it matters for understanding the full picture. Kim Kardashian's relationship with public perception has been one of the most remarkable media stories of the last 2 decades. She started as someone who was famous for being famous, which was a genuinely new cultural category in the early days of reality television and social media. She was dismissed, mocked, and underestimated consistently, and she responded to that underestimation by building actual things. Each time people counted her out, she came back with something that demonstrated she was more than the caricature her critics wanted her to be. This pattern is actually significant when you are trying to evaluate her private equity move, because the people who are dismissing it now are not necessarily engaging with a fresh question. Many of them are repeating a pattern of dismissal that has been wrong before. That does not mean they are wrong this time. But it is worth noting that the track record of writing Kim Kardashian off has not been a winning bet historically. On the flip side, there are legitimate concerns being raised about this move that are not coming from a place of snobbery or bias. The concerns about celebrity influence in financial markets, about the potential for ordinary investors to make bad decisions based on a famous name, about the systemic issues with private equity as an industry, these are real concerns that deserve serious engagement rather than being dismissed as hating. The honest answer is that Kim Kardashian's entry into private equity is both more legitimate than her harshest critics are willing to admit, and more complicated than her most enthusiastic defenders are acknowledging. Reality tends to be messier and more interesting than either side of an internet debate wants to sit with. Here is what I think this whole situation actually reveals about where we are culturally right now. We are in a moment of profound uncertainty about the relationship between fame and expertise, between traditional credentials and demonstrated results, between access and merit. These are not new tensions, but they are being exposed in new ways by a media environment that gives everyone a platform to weigh in and an algorithm that rewards outrage and hot takes over nuance. Kim Kardashian has become, whether she intended to or not, one of the most interesting case studies in how our culture navigates these tensions. Because everything about her challenges the categories we use to sort people. She is not supposed to be a serious business person because she is a celebrity. She is not supposed to be an attorney because she did not go through the traditional path. She is not supposed to be in private equity because she does not have the traditional pedigree, and yet she is doing all of these things. And the world has not ended. The question of whether she is doing them well, in a way that creates genuine value for the people around her and not just wealth for herself, that is a question that time will answer. We do not have the full answer yet. What we do have is a debate that is genuinely reflecting real divisions in how people think about success, wealth, credibility and opportunity. And that debate is worth having, even when it gets messy. Now I do want to give you my honest take on all of this before we wrap up, because I think you came here for more than just a summary of the different positions. My honest take is this: the most productive version of this debate is not Kim Kardashian, thumbs up or thumbs down. The most productive version of this debate is the one where we actually examine our assumptions about who gets to be taken seriously and why. Because if your objection to Kim's private equity firm is purely about credentials and traditional qualifications, then you need to be willing to apply that standard consistently. That means also questioning the multitude of traditionally credentialed people who have run financial institutions into the ground with their MBAs proudly hanging on the wall. The 2008 financial crisis was not caused by people who lacked prestigious degrees. It was caused by people who had all the credentials in the world and still made catastrophic decisions. If your objection is about wealth concentration and the systemic harms of private equity, then Kim Kardashian is a very small part of a very large conversation, and focusing on her specifically might actually be a distraction from the bigger issues you care about. If your support for Kim is rooted in genuine admiration for what she has built and a belief that her track record merits taking her seriously in this space, that is a defensible position. But it should come with an acknowledgement that the concerns being raised about celebrity influence in finance are real and worth engaging with. And if your support for Kim is just because you are a fan and you want to see her win, well, that is very human and it is fine, but it might not be the strongest analytical position to argue from. The internet debate about Kim Kardashian's private equity move is messy, and it is heated, and it is sometimes frustrating because of how much bad faith is on both sides. But underneath the noise, there are real questions being asked about credibility, about merit, about who gets access to financial power, and about what we actually value when we say we value expertise. Those questions are worth sitting with, even if the person asking them is wearing designer clothes and has 100 million Instagram followers. The internet is going to keep debating this, and honestly, it should. Not because Kim Kardashian is the most important story in the world right now, but because the things this story is actually about, power, access, credibility, celebrity, wealth, are genuinely important. And sometimes the biggest cultural debates get wrapped in celebrity packaging because that is the only thing that can get enough people to pay attention. If you made it this far, I want to know where you stand on this. Not just on Kim specifically, but on the bigger question underneath it all. Does demonstrated business success count as expertise, or does it always need to be paired with traditional credentials to be taken seriously? Drop that in the comments because I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you found this breakdown useful, if you feel like you understand this debate at a deeper level than you did at the start of this video, hit that subscribe button because this is the kind of content we make here. We take the things the internet is loudest about and we go deeper than the hot takes. We actually try to understand what is really going on underneath the surface. That is the whole point. I will see you in the next